Morning. We're just going to give folks a moment to come in from the waiting room. When you are coming in from the waiting room, as a reminder, please do remain on mute unless or until you are appearing or testifying before the board. Thank you. Okay. Good morning. This is a hearing before the licensing board for the city of Boston. Today is Tuesday, June 28th, 2022. Today's hearing is being held pursuant to temporary amendments to the open meeting law. That is what allows us to meet virtually. Today's hearing will be recorded and posted to the city of Boston's website. Before I review procedural matters, I will introduce Chairwoman Kathleen Joyce.
Thanks, Danny. My name is Kathleen Joyce. I'm chair of the Boston Licensing Board, and today I'm joined by Commissioner Kiana Saxton.
Thank you.
Sorry,
once again. Great. Please ensure that your audio and visuals are working properly. And as a reminder, please remain on mute unless or until you are appearing or testifying before the board. I will call each item in the order that it appears on today's agenda. I will then ask who is present on behalf of the licensee, who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department, and whether there are any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident. I will then swear in all parties. After that, the police report will be read into the record, followed by question. The licensee or the representative will have the opportunity to make a brief statement, followed by questions by the chairwoman and commissioners. Again, all testimony will be limited only to those individuals with firsthand personal knowledge of the alleged incident. Calling item number 1 on this morning's agenda, High Street Restaurant Group LLC, doing business as Howl at the Moon and Down Ultra Lounge, located at 184 High Street. Date of the incident, December 19th, 2021. Assault and battery, patron on patron, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning, Attorney Green, Dennis Quilty, attorney representing the licensee. Good morning, Madam Chair and commissioners. With me is Paul Holian and Arthur. Last name is going to escape me at this very moment. Artie's with us.
Lucas.
Arthur Lucas. I'm sorry. Apologize. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Look on the side of the ambulance.
Sergeant Martin Harrison.
Good morning. This is Officer Drew at the Boston Police Department.
Sergeant Harrison, your matter is third on the agenda.
Okay.
Great, thank you. So Officer Drew is here on behalf of Boston Police Department for this violation?
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you very much. And are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Okay, can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Officer Drew, you may proceed with the police report.
About 1:16 in the morning on Sunday, December 19th, 2021, Officer Drew and Officer Roca, while assigned as the Alpha 103 Alpha, responded to a radio call for an unknown problem at 184 High Street, Boston. Also responding were the following units: Sergeant Downey, Alpha 910, Alpha 411 Alpha Merrick's, Alpha 102 Alpha Robichaud Garcia, Alpha 426 Florentino, Alpha 113 Lucas and Scott, Alpha 436 Marchand, and Alpha 202 Giblin and Wynn. While en route, Officer Florentino, who was on scene at that time, broadcast that he was notified by the staff at Howl at the Moon of a large fight in the basement. When the additional units arrived on scene, the bar had mostly emptied out onto the street, but officers observed the suspect, Dawit Youssef, standing on the street corner, screaming and acting belligerently. Officers attempted numerous times to assist Mr. Youssef as he was complaining of right eye pain. However, he was uncooperative and became verbally aggressive towards officers. He refused any assistance. He would not provide any information as to what happened, and he refused to provide his identification. He also became physically aggressive towards officers, entering their personal space and touching them as he wildly gestured while yelling. At that time, Officer Giblin was flagged down by the victims, Kara Murphy and Patrick Murphy. Patrick Murphy stated that they were all in the basement of Howl at the Moon and observed Mr. Youssef aggressively approaching female patrons on the dance floor. He then stated that he then came up behind Ms. Murphy and put both his hands around her waist without her permission. Patrick Murphy stated that he intervened in an attempt to free his sister from Mr. Youssef's grip. Mr. Youssef then turned on Mr. Murphy and punched him in the head, causing a large brawl to ensue downstairs. The bar staff escorted Mr. Youssef out of the bar. However, he continued to stand out front, harassing other patrons and screaming. Mr. Murphy then left the bar and stated that again he was approached by Mr. Youssef outside, who then headbutted him. It should be noted that the staff stated that Mr. Youssef was escorted out of the downstairs bar, but managed to get back in upstairs after he was removed. William Pinella and Dylan O'Leary were with Patrick and Kara Murphy for the duration of the altercation and stated that they observed the entire event. After officers attempted to assist Mr. Youssef on scene, he continued to scream about his treatment inside the bar and being stomped out. Officers attempted to de-escalate him numerous times, however, it was to no avail. Because of his complaint of eye pain, Boston EMS arrived on scene, but Mr. Youssef refused any assistance or treatment from them. He continued to scream about his upbringing and other non-relevant information and was completely uncompliant with all attempts to assist him. Officers then escorted Mr. Youssef to the rear of the patrol wagon. At that time, a large crowd had begun to gather and the various patrons began to swarm the rear of the wagon, drawing significant attention and engaging all police resources on scene. Due to the significant breach of the peace, it was determined that Mr. Youssef would be placed under arrest and transported to District A1 for booking. Mr. Youssef is to be charged with disturbing the peace, as well as 2 counts of assault and battery. Sergeant Downey, Alpha 910, responded to Howl at the Moon and served license premise inspection notice 060612 in hand to Artie Lucas.
Thank you, Officer Drew. Attorney Quilty, would you like to address the alleged incident?
If I may, thank you, Attorney Green. Officer, the inspection notice indicates that the police were called by the staff. Is that correct?
I don't know who initially made the call to 911. I know that we were just responding for a call for an unknown problem, but I don't know where the call originated.
So I can't read the signature, but whoever filled out the licensed premise inspection notice on behalf of the Boston Police indicated that the police were called by staff.
Okay.
Do you not have that?
I don't have that in my notes.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not aware.
Okay. And I wish I just cannot read the signature, so I don't know which officer it was, but the document is, I presume, Mr. Green, you have this document in your files?
I believe we do. Let me check.
I think it was Sergeant Downey.
It looks like it could be Downey. I mean, but I have it, Attorney Green. If you do not have this in your files, I'll make sure to send it over.
That would be great. Thank you.
And officer, just you would not know either that it looks like Officer Downey suggested that management cooperated with the police. That box is checked as well.
Yes, they did.
Oh,
They were very compliant with us and helpful.
Thank you, ma'am.
We do have that,
It
Attorney
appears-
Quilty.
I'm sorry?
We do have that, Attorney
Oh,
Quilty.
thank you. It appears, ma'am, from the reading of the report that this incident was entirely the making of this individual, Mr. Youssef. And he just kind of went crazy. Is that what happened?
Yes, I would agree with that.
And so there was nobody, he was arrested, nobody else was arrested. The staff complied with assisted you guys on the scene. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions. Mr. Lucas was present, Madam Chair, if you'd like to question him as to the incident. One thing we do take umbrage with is that there's a statement that staff said that this gentleman went back in after he was removed. That is not the case. We don't know where that came from. But in any event, Mr. Lucas, do you have anything to add, sir, or Madam Chair, do you want to question Mr. Lucas?
If he has something he'd like to add, he can go first.
The only thing I would add is that when the fight ensued, we were notified right away and we called police because it looked like it was definitely going to be an issue right away. And we tried to remove Mr. Youssef and separate the parties. And then by the time police called, he was even more erratic outside.
Okay. How many staff were working that night?
Door staff or tire staff?
Let's start with the door staff.
Door staff, we had 13 staff members.
13 door staff?
Yep.
Okay,
We
so
split them up.
so the suspect was in the basement. Describe what happened. He was walked upstairs and onto the sidewalk.
He was walked through the down door upstairs to the sidewalk.
Okay, and then what happened?
we obviously we can't detain him, so we had called the police, and from what I remember, the police arrived pretty quickly because of, sometimes it takes a while, sometimes it doesn't, but he was just screaming and yelling at other patrons as they were exiting because it was, sort of later in the night, so. And
So did
then,
your staff remain outside with him until the police came?
yes, not all of the staff, just I think 2 or 3 staff members, because we have 2 that work one door and 2 that work the other door. So it was at least 4 to 5 staff members. And then myself and my other manager were outside too.
So you were outside the whole time this happened?
After he was removed, yeah, I was notified.
Okay. And you couldn't get him to leave you couldn't get him to leave in front of
No,
the licensed premise?
no, he would not leave.
Okay, and you're stating, and your attorney stated he did not go back in upstairs?
No, he did. If anything, he walked up the steps, but I from what I remember, he never re-entered the building.
Okay. And so what is your dispersal plan when you have a patron causing a situation like that?
As in asking them to leave?
Yeah, how many people escort them out? What do you do?
It usually, depending on the incident, we had to, obviously there was a fight that ensued between the 2 parties. So we had to separate the 2 groups. And as we were separating them, I wasn't downstairs. We usually just walk behind them and, tell them to leave slowly. So that's basically it. And then we can't detain them. We asked them to leave. He knew the police were coming because we, notified our girl that was working the host stand to call 911 right away.
Okay,
So he knew that the police were coming and he wasn't listening to anybody.
okay. Okay, I don't have any further questions. Commissioner Saxon, do you?
Just one quick question about, you said the report said that he was harassing the females on the dance floor. So did any staff report that? Did anyone catch that?
No,
before
not at
the fight even started?
not at the time. They just reacted to as soon as the fight started. I think the brother intervened. It was a brother and sister, and the brother intervened. So, and then once that started, no one really saw him doing anything prior to that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions?
No, none for me.
All right, thank you. In that case, the board will take this matter under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling item number 2, Stage Karaoke LLC, located at 138 Brighton Ave in Alston. Date of the incident, March 18th, 2022, over serving patron in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Once again, Attorney Green, Dennis Quilty, attorney representing the licensee. With me is Henry Wong, who is the owner of the establishment. Good morning.
Thank you. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Officer Lynch present. If not, Lieutenant Detective Troy.
Thank you, Lieutenant. I don't see Officer Lynch. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Lieutenant Troy, you may proceed with the police report.
Reading from police report authored by Officer Joe Lynch on March 19, 2022. It reads as follows. At around 11:28, Officer Lynch responded to the 138 Brighton Ave Stage Karaoke Productions. A patron was reported to be intoxicated and confused. On arrival, Officer Lynch observed Boston EMS, Ambulance 14, Lewis and Gennaro, attending to an Asian female in their late 20s. The victim, the female, was not verbal, slumped on the floor of the elevator just inside the front entrance. Boston EMS retrieved identification from her person and presented it to Officer Lynch. Miss Wan Zhang of Quincy was transported to St. Elizabeth's Hospital for an evaluation. That's the extent of Officer Lynch's police report. There's a licensed premise violation written by Detective Rutherford, and there's no supplementary report. So that's the extent of the incident reports.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Attorney Quilty, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, sir. Lieutenant Detective, you were not present or have any knowledge. You're reading the report of the officer on scene. Is that right?
No, sir,
So
no,
you have no personal knowledge of it.
I do not.
Okay, thank you, sir. The documents you referenced, one, the inspection notice indicates that the 911 call from Alex at Stage Karaoke, is that correct? Where it indicates where police called?
Yes, it appears as though police were called by the licensees.
And the statement suggests the owners cooperated with the police, is that correct?
It also notes that, yes.
Thank you, sir. And as you indicated, the report does not suggest a lot. Mr. Wong has video of the entire event, if you will. It's quite apparent to us that this seems to be another of these situations where somebody ingested something because the video that we can present to the board, and will do so, shows these folks entering perfectly normal, and then literally within moments, this woman just kind of collapses. And I mean, clearly on something, whether it was ingested before or during, we have no idea. We do have video of her at the establishment, and we'll provide that to you. Other than that, we have no information or knowledge of anything. We didn't observe anything that she ingested. We didn't observe anybody drop something in a drink, or any such thing. And the board certainly knows that this is a phenomenon that's been reoccurring quite frequently. In fact, the front page of today's Globe has a major story, which I'm sure everyone's read, regarding this kind of phenomenon. Mr. Wong, can you provide any further details to the board?
I have actually Alex with me. He was the manager who called the 911. He made the call that night, and we both were present during the entire night. Maybe Alex can say a little bit about what you saw.
Alex, just state your last name for the record. I know
Yeah,
you're
thank
right.
you.
Sorry, Vichara, Alex Vichara.
Okay. And were you there that night? Or are you the person who called the police?
Yes, I was there, and I was the person that called the police.
And can you just tell the board what you observed of this young woman?
So I watched her, enter the establishment, and then she obviously, she was hanging about with, a few friends. Started off with one person, and then another friend came in, and she was just kind of, she didn't really drink all that much at all. I think she had one cocktail, and she didn't even finish that one, according to the video that we were looking at. And then moments later, she just kind of started just collapsing, just really out of the blue, while talking to one of her friends that she was with the entire evening. And she would just kind of want to stiff up with her head tilted back specifically, which was very odd, specifically for, in comparison from someone being drunk and in comparison to somebody, maybe taking something else. So it was quite concerning, and hence why we wanted to call the police to make sure that she was okay.
Okay. And you stood by and assisted the police when they arrived?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I mean, sorry, but we just really don't have any further information to offer. We just cannot explain what happened, but I mean, the assumption is that she ingested something and it affected her this way.
Will you submit the video to the board, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Wong?
And
Yes.
also, do you know how long she was in your establishment?
It lasted about an hour.
She was there for 1 hour, and you're saying she ordered one drink
Right,
but didn't finish it?
right.
Actually,
How
the
did-
guy ordered
The-
a drink.
Someone ordered a drink for her.
Okay. How did she get into the elevator alone?
She was not alone. She was with us.
She was with you in the
We
elevator.
brought her down the
Okay.
elevator just to make sure she wouldn't, fall down the stairs and whatnot.
We were with her all the way
Okay.
until she was in the ambulance.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't have any other questions. Commissioner Saxon, do you?
No questions from me, thank you.
Thank you. The board will take this matter under advisement as well. And Attorney Quilty, please do submit that video whenever you're able to.
We will do it today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Calling item number 3, Congress Fine Dining LLC doing business as Lucky's located at 355 to 359 Congress Street, date of the incident March 20th, 2022. Patron on patron assault and battery in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Attorney Green, once again, Dennis Quilty, attorney representing the licensee. With us this morning are Nelson Burns and Luke. Sorry, I don't have his last name with me as well. Luke, are you with us this morning? Just state your name for the record. No. So Nelson Burns, are you with us?
I am with you.
There he
And
is,
Luke's last
Nelson.
name is Beardsley.
Luke Beardsley, I'm sorry. Is he with us, Nelson?
I'm not sure. I didn't look at the
I
rest of
don't
his
see
Zoom.
him on, okay.
No, I don't see him on here.
All right, we have Nelson Burns then will be the witness for us this morning. Good morning.
Thank you. Who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Sergeant Martin Harrison.
Thank you, Sergeant Harrison. And any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Can you both please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Sergeant Harrison, you may proceed with the police report.
Okay, about 1:30 a.m. on Sunday, March 20th, 2022, Officers Porcaro and Stepanian and the Fox 101 responded to a radio call for an assault and battery in progress at 355 Congress Street, Lucky's Lounge. Upon arrival, officers were met by victim Jasmine Almaty, who stated she was assaulted by an unknown female inside Lucky's Lounge. The victim Almaty stated she was with a group of friends inside the bar when an argument regarding a booth ensued with a group of unknown individuals. The victim stated a Hispanic female about 40 years old with blonde curly hair wearing a red jacket punched the victim twice on the left side of her face. The victim stated unknown female and other males left the bar heading towards Seaport Boulevard. Officer spoke with the manager, Nelson Burns of Lucky's Lounge, who stated that he had video footage of the incident. The video showed the suspect shoved the victim in the chest with her right arm and punched the victim on the left side of her face with the right arm. Officers searched the area for suspects to no avail. The victim refused the need of medical attention. That completes the incident report.
Thank you, Sergeant Harrison. Attorney Quilty, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Thank you. If I may, Sergeant, did the staff cooperate with you?
Yes, they did.
And did they provide the video to you that you just read into the record?
Yes, they did. They did provide that immediately to us upon request.
Okay, thank you, sir. No further questions. Mr. Burns, you've been sworn to state your position for the record. What is your title at the establishment?
I'm the general manager.
Okay, and you were present on the night in question?
I was.
And were you or your staff notified by the alleged victim that something had occurred?
We were not.
So how did you find out that this had occurred?
A large argument ensued in the dining room. And so it was towards the end of the night. So I immediately turned up all the lights and shut off the music to find out what was going on. because there was a bunch of people yelling at each other. I never witnessed any assault. And the next thing we knew, the girl was outside and she had already called the police and said that she had been assaulted. We had doormen within 3 seconds of the argument taking place. Were over there and broke everybody up from arguing. And we did not even know that there was an assault until I watched the video with the officer.
Okay. Did your staff cooperate with the police? Did you cooperate with the police?
100%.
Is there anything further you feel you could have done on the night in question?
No, I mean, we had door guys that were 2 right in the room right there, and they broke up the argument within 3 seconds. I turned on all the lights, I shut off the music so I could figure out what was going on and why there was an argument happening, because it was a lot of people arguing all of a sudden. We just did not know what exactly was going on.
Okay, and no no one was identified outside as the perpetrator, or no one was found outside, that is?
I believe she had left the scene by then too, because the girl on the video, we couldn't find her anywhere.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Burns. The board may have some questions for you.
Sure.
I just have one question. How many staff did you have working that night?
I had 6 doormen.
6 doormen, okay. I don't have any other questions. Commissioner Saxon, do you?
No, thanks.
Thank you. And the board will take this matter under advisement as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling item number 4, Emmanuel Enterprises LLC, located at 71 to 73 Meridian Street in East Boston. Date of the incident, March 22nd, 2022. Patron on patron assault and battery in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning. My name's Michael Ford here for the licensee. And also here is Karen Abajali, the assistant manager. She should be somewhere.
Looking for her.
Saw her a little
Oh,
earlier.
yeah, I see her there waving her hand. Yes.
Got it.
Thank you for being here.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department? Is anybody here?
Officer Santiago is on mute there.
Oh, Officer Santiago, I see you there. Yep.
Sorry, I was muted.
Great, thank you. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Okay, can you both please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Officer Santiago, you may proceed with the police report.
At about 1 a.m. on Tuesday, March 22nd, 2020, Officer Santiago and Hogan, while assigned as a Go 201 Alpha, responded to a radio call for a person with a knife at 73 Meridian Street. Upon arrival, the officers entered the establishment and viewed a group of about 10 patrons by the bar. Officers identified the 2 individuals who were removed in the fight. Both were patted for weapons with negative results. It was stated to officers the fight of Perapino Sebastian Hoyas did not have any visible marks and declined EMS. Both individuals were escorted by officers out of the establishment. It is unknown who called 911, but the number listed was 857-417-3085. The Gold 911 Sergeant Holden arrived on scene and conducted a license premise violation. The following units responded: the Gold 101 Alpha, Sullivan, Vencia, and Madrano, the Gold 416 Alpha, Bracho, and the Gold 425 Alpha, Shears. That completes the police report.
Thank you. We have a supplemental report as well. Were you going to read that, or was it someone else?
I was not aware that there was a supplemental.
Lieutenant Detective Troy, I can read that if Sergeant Holden isn't present.
We haven't seen it.
Oh, have you not?
No, it's not in the packet.
Okay, it was in ours. Apologies for that. In that case, that concludes the police report. Attorney Ford, would you like to address the alleged violation, the alleged incident?
Yes, just a few questions for the officer. Good morning, Officer Santiago. It's fair to say upon arrival, these 10 people, they weren't fighting, they were just at the bar, correct?
Yes, correct.
And of course, it's indicated there was no evidence of any physical touching or weapon, correct?
That is correct.
And licensee, did they fully cooperate with you, respectful?
Yes, they were. I believe the assistant manager, who's also on the Zoom, was the one present, and she was very helpful to officers.
Okay, thank you so much, officer. I have nothing further for the officer. Just a few questions from the assistant manager who's on. Could you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Karen Abujali. I'm the assistant manager for Emmanuel Enterprises, doing business at El Diamante.
Okay, and you were working on March 22nd, correct?
Correct.
All right, and you were up on the second floor, is that fair to say?
Yes, I was on the second floor. Like you guys know the information, the incident happens around 1 o'clock on that Monday night. So usually we close second floor, so we make it easier for all the customers and for us to control how the people walking out of the place. So I was on the second floor when I heard some kind of noises because the music was already low. So I went downstairs and I asked the employees and the people what happened. Oh no, they were arguing about a bill. And so as I'm talking to them, the police came in and they spoke with the two customers. And as the police officer said, everything was like, it was nothing going on.
Okay, and did you call the police?
No, I didn't.
Why not?
Because as I say, I was on the second floor. By the minute I got down in the first floor, the police was already like, in a matter of a second, they got there and they handled the situations from there.
Okay, and I just, obviously, you spoke with your staff, you asked questions, correct? Did you ask and learn whether or not they had witnessed any physical contact between the gentleman or any weapon or threats of
I
a
did
weapon?
ask, and there was no weapons, no contact, no any kind of contact, nothing.
Okay, and police, they came in, they did their job and they escorted the people off?
Yeah.
Okay, I have no further questions for her at this time unless the board does.
I do have a question. So Karen, you were upstairs, you heard a verbal, you heard people talking loudly or a verbal fight?
No. I heard, like, as I explained, the music was already like low because it was around at 1 o'clock in the morning and we closed at 1:30. So I heard like, some kind of a weird noise. So I walked downstairs right away. But like, the place where I work is like 5 seconds from the police station. So the police arrived right away.
Okay. So it sounds like there was two people fighting over a bill?
Yes.
What did the bartender say when you interviewed the bartender?
I asked her what happened. No, they started like yelling at each other because they were trying to decide who was gonna pay the bill. And that's when I heard, and that's when I walked down.
Okay. Okay, I don't have any other questions right now. Commissioner Saxon, do you?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, then in that case, the board will take this matter under advisement as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Calling item number 5, Tycor Corporation doing business as Warren Tavern located at 2 Pleasant Street in Charlestown. Date of the incident, April 3rd, 2022. Patron on patron assault and battery in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning, members of the board and Attorney Green, Carolyn Conway on behalf of the licensee. And I have with me today Mr. John Harnett, who was the manager on duty that night. He's referenced in the police report.
Great, thank you. I don't see Mr. Harnett with us.
I don't know if he's John's iPhone. I just talked to him just a little while ago.
Okay, great. If he could put his camera on so we could swear him in, that would be great. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Sergeant Daniel McIsaac.
Thank you. And are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Okay, still waiting.
Peter, do you know, Mr. Golden, do you know whether John Harnett? Maybe we should ask for a second call and I'll give him a call, make sure that he's on. As I said, I spoke to him within the last half hour.
Sure, we
Carolyn,
can do
I'll
that.
call him right now.
Great. Yep, we can return to this item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Apologize.
Yep, we'll take a second call. Calling item number 6, Aya Pizza LLC doing business as Redline Pizza located at 580 to 582 Dorchester Ave in South Boston. Date of the incident, February 23rd, 2022. Premise operating after posted 11 p.m. closing, 12:50 a.m. in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 9. Who is present on behalf of the licensee? Is anybody here present on behalf of Redline Pizza? We do know that they were served. We will take a second call on this as well. Item number 7 has been continued and will be heard at the next violation hearing on July 12th. Calling item number 8, BBRGTR LLC, doing business as Atlantic Fish Company located at 761 Boylston Street. Date of the incident, April 18th, 2022. Overcrowding on patio 52, mechanical count, patio capacity 23, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Board's Rule 1.03J and 1.06A and F. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
My name is Matthew Santos. I'm the general manager. And Maurice Del Vendo is the director of security.
Thank you. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
I am.
Detective Hernandez. Great. Thank you. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning?
Detective William Gallagher, if need be.
Thank you. Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Detective Hernandez, you may proceed with the police report.
Good morning. I'll be reading a police report which I wrote on Monday, April 18, 2022. Lieutenant Detective Adrian Troy, Sheriff Detective William Gallagher, and Detective Eddie Hernandez assigned to the BPD license permission conducted a license permission inspection of Atlantic Fish Company located 761 Boylston Street in Boston. As detectives walked up to the establishment, detectives observed a crowd of patrons on the establishment's outside patio. Detectives reviewed the licenses and permits of the establishment and learned the capacity for the outside patio is set at 23 persons. Detective Hernandez performed a mechanical count of the establishment and discovered that the actual number of persons located on the patio was 52. Detectives brought this to the attention of the person in charge, Mr. Matt Santos. Mr. Santos stated that he would immediately bring the establishment into compliance. As a result of what Detective observed, Sergeant Detective Gallagher issued license permission inspection notice 043310 for overcrowding on the establishment's outside patio. Mr. Santos signed for and accepted the notice as well.
Thank you, Detective Hernandez. Mr. Santos, Mr. Del Vendo, would you like to address the alleged incident? Mr. Del Vendo, it looks like you're speaking, but you're on mute.
I apologize. Detective Hernandez, was the staff cooperative when you came into the premises?
Yes, sir. Extremely, sir.
Was there any disturbance or disorder noted during your presence?
No.
At this time, we are not contesting the Boston Police Department report as entered into evidence by Detective Hernandez. We'll follow up with our sincere apology for that. We have only, if we can place this in proper context, it would be helpful for the board to gather additional information. We have the privilege of being property owners on Boylston Street, and it is a privilege. We also, at the same locations, we are licensees. So we take this serious enough through the years that we understand the vicarious liability that we have with regard to any violation that happens on a licensed premise. We are not looking to mitigate this. We take full responsibility. It begins and ends with us as licensees. Again, we do not contest any of the report as placed into evidence. If I may, I'd ask questions of the board, of myself, or the General Manager, Matt Santos.
Thank you, sir. I just have one question. How many staff were working outside on the patio that night?
Well, there were 3 staff for security, 2 at the front door, and we normally have a 3rd going to the back end of the restaurant. And the protocol that we've used for a number of years has been that if there is an incident of any type happening on the street, the sidewalk, or in the restaurant in the front of the house, everyone is moved to the back of the house and the exit to the alleyway. And if there's any situation that develops in the rear of the house, everything moves to the front of the house and onto the sidewalk. That's the protocol we followed. In this instance, once we open our front doors, which are street level, it opens right to the patio itself. Very, very easy, and it's a wonderful access. This got ahead of ourselves very, very quickly. If there's an irony to it, Madam Chairperson, it's this: the very, very next day we received, as we had applied in early April, for an extension of our existing patio under the temporary condition. And we received that approval the following day after the marathon. We're not saying this by mitigation. We thank you for having approved this. We did have a review of the entire situation of all our 3 restaurants that we have in close proximity to the finish line. Again, our apologies for taking up the time, fully responsible our venues. Thank you.
Thanks. I don't have any other questions. Commissioner Saxon, do you?
I don't either. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you. Then the board will take this matter under advisement as well. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'll be calling item number 9, Asian Cuisine Inc., doing business as Typhoon Restaurant located at 725 Boylston Street. Date of the incident, April 18th, 2022, overcrowding on patio, 62 mechanical count, capacity 8, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Boards Rule 1.03J and 1.06A and F. Service of more than 2 alcoholic drinks to one person at a time, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Danny Fan, I'm the owner.
Great, thank you, Mr. Fan. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Sergeant Detective William Gallagher.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning?
Detective Hernandez if needed.
Detective Troy if needed.
Thank you. Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Sergeant Detective Gallagher, you may proceed with the police report.
Yes, good morning. On 4/18/2022 at about 2:20 p.m., Lieutenant Detective Adrian Troy, Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, and Detective Eddie Hernandez, assigned to the licensed premise unit, conducted a licensed premise inspection of Typhoon Restaurant at 725 Boylston Street. As detectives entered the premise, they observed the patio to be completely occupied by standing patrons watching the BAA marathon. Inside the premise, as detectives were waiting to speak with staff, they observed 2 patrons purchase more than 2 alcoholic drinks from the bar, then walk back to the patio. The first patron ordered 3 bottles of beer, and the second patron ordered 4 bottles of beer and then walked over to the patio. Sergeant Detective Gallagher spoke with the person in charge, Danny Fan, and informed him that there is a 2-drink limit per person at a time when ordering alcohol. Mr. Fannin said he would speak to his staff members. On inspection of Typhoon's licenses, detectives learned that the capacity of the patio to be only 8 persons. Lieutenant Detective Troy conducted a mechanical count of the patio, which resulted in 62 persons being found. Detectives relayed that information to Mr. Fan as well. As a result, what detectives had observed, Sergeant Detective Gallagher issued a licensed premise inspection notice number 043311 to Typhoon Restaurant for overcrowding on patio, 62 found a mechanical count, capacity 8, service of more than 2 alcoholic drinks to one person at a time, which is under the Mass Prohibited Practices 204 CMR. Mr. Dan Fan signed for and accepted the notice. Those essentially are the facts.
Thank you, Sergeant Gallagher. Mr. Fan, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, I admit to everything on the police report. It was very crowded on the patio, which we did have a little control over the crowd. We kept most of them still indoor. We have like a window area where they were standing watching, but then once their friends coming down to the finish line, they just come out to the patio to cheer their friends, and it was a group of 20 or 22. So they all rushed to the patio at the same time. So I mean, I cannot go and grab them back from the window area. So I admit to everything on the police report, and I just want the board to forgive us for not, controlling the crowd as we should be doing.
Thank you, Mr. Fan. Chairwoman Joyce, any questions?
Mr. Fan, did you have any staff working the entrance to the patio from the restaurant?
No, we a sit down restaurant, and
Okay.
yeah, the Boston Marathon this year was just something else.
Yeah.
It's not like any other years. It was just something else. I guess it's after COVID, mask mandate was lifted and people just come out and share. We did not go over our capacity, which is 99. But everybody was just rushing out to the patio. It was just a beautiful day to be out. So yeah, we admit that we lost control there. That everybody just rushed out from their tables.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions. Commissioner Saxon, do you have any questions?
No, just to encourage you to come up with some sort of process to make sure that that doesn't happen again, because that does present a huge safety risk.
Yes, absolutely. We actually have come up with a plan for next year. If it's a beautiful day again, we're going to increase staff. Like I said, we got hit this year, was just something else that did not happen in the past 22 years that we've been there.
I do have one more question, Mr. Fan. The service of more than 2 drinks to a patron. Can you
Yes.
address that for the board?
Yes, absolutely. It did happen. This the same group that left the credit card for us at the bar. So that same group, they kept ordering for their friends. So they would bring to the tables before they rush out to the patio. So we served them, but then they ran out to the patio at the same time. So yeah, absolutely. I did talk to my staff and said that doesn't matter what, they have to come up to buy their own drinks.
Okay.
So that we would have a flow instead of, the friend bring beers or whatnot. They might serve to minors and all that, which my staff did agree, and we took action right away. Right after the police officers were there, and we actually went on to the patio and asked people to step back, which we didn't have enough manpower to push them back, but we did ask them nicely, and then most of them did come back inside, but not the capacity of 8 on the patio. There were at least like 25 to 30 were standing there, and they refused to go because their friends were coming down to the finish line.
Okay.
So like you said, yeah, we lost control there. So serving 2 drinks per customer at the time is, I mean, 1 at a time is what we've been practicing, but it's just that day we did lose control. And like I said, that group of 20, they just rushed out to the patio, and then we lost control there for a minute. Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you for answering that question. I don't have any other questions at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner Saxon. No further questions from you? All right, the board will take this under advisement then. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Bye now.
Calling item number 10, the Circle Bar and Grill, doing business as the Circle, located at 356 Chestnut Hill Ave in Brighton. Date of the incident, April 23rd, 2022. Overcrowding, house count 170, mechanical count 255, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Board's Rule 1.03J and 1.06A and F. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good
George
morning,
Cariotis.
Attorney Green, John Aida of McDermott Quilty Miller, and joining me is George Cariotis, part owner of the Circle.
Great. Thank you. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Marion.
Thank you, Detective Hernandez. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Okay, can you all please raise your right hand?
Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, if need be.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Sergeant.
Sergeant Detective Gallagher.
Yep. Thank you. Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
We do.
Thank you. Detective Hernandez, you may proceed with the police report.
Good morning. Again, I'll be reading from a police report, which I wrote on Saturday, April 23rd, 2022. Sharon Detective William Gallagher and Detective Eddie Hernandez signed to the BP license permit and conducted a license premise inspection of Circle Tavern located at 356 Chestnut Hill Ave in Boston. As detectives walked into the establishment, detectives asked the front door staff how many patrons they had inside. Staff members stated that they had a count of 170 patrons. While reviewing the license and permits of the establishment, detectives learned the capacity of the premises set to 180 patrons. Detective Hernandez performed a mechanical count of the establishment and discovered that the actual numbers of persons located inside the premise was 255. Detectives brought this to the attention of the person in charge, Mr. Charlie Pappas. Mr. Pappas stated that he would immediately bring the establishment into compliance. As a result of what detectives observed, Sergeant Detective Gallagher issued license permit inspection notice 042321 for overcrowding of the establishment. Mr. Pappas signed for an accepted notice. That's all.
Thank you, Detective Hernandez. Attorney Aida, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, thank you. Detective Hernandez, did the staff cooperate with you that evening?
Yes, sir, fully.
And I don't have any other further questions for the detectives. Again, we're not questioning the detectives' facts as presented. We realize and acknowledge that the numbers exceeded the establishment's capacity. Mr. Karyotis, who joins us tonight, would actually testify that it was a Saturday night. It was slower that evening. He had gone home, and for whatever reason, things got busier than anticipated and expected. And the staff at the front door obviously wasn't able to keep up with his job of keeping count. And as a result of that, they did have a staff meeting immediately after, talk about the protocols in keeping in compliance with the rules and regulations of the board. And they implemented a couple different policies. They've agreed on busier nights, traditionally busier nights, they'll have a second employee at the front checking IDs and also having an additional count as well. And Ms. Karyotis will also tell the board that they will, the two members will check with one another approximately every half an hour or so, just to make sure that their counts amongst the two of them are accurate as well, just to make sure this doesn't happen again. He understands the importance of remaining in compliance, and he is trying to be proactive to make sure this doesn't happen again. George, if I missed anything or you want to speak, can you do so?
Yes. So we are gonna add another security staff member up front just to, help out the crowd control and do the count and just be more accurate of going in, making an extra count. We made it mandatory, so every half hour we have to go downstairs, upstairs, make sure the count is the same, make sure the same amount of people are there, and anything different, we just make sure that, we're doing the right thing.
Thank you, George.
Thank you. Chairman Joyce, any questions?
Yes, give me 1 second. How many staff were working that night and what time did you leave, Mr. Karyotis?
3.
You left at 3?
No, we had 3 staff members. I left around 11 o'clock, I believe, 10:30.
Okay, and on a busy night, how many staff members do you normally have?
Usually we do have 3 and myself, and my brother was in the kitchen at the time cooking. So when I'm there, I make sure I'm on point. I'm there every single day. It happened that I had a night off. I figured it wasn't gonna be that busy. A lot of the kids had left. So I figured, let me take advantage of taking the night off, but I wish I hadn't left.
Okay. And so at the door, counting people coming in, they have a hand counter. Is it one person? Is it 2 people at the door?
Two people. One's inside the door, one's outside the door. And one does the count for downstairs and the other guy does the count for the whole establishment.
Okay. So two people at the door, and then there's a third person that counts people going downstairs. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And that was Papa's uncle, Papa's. He's there like the same with me all the time.
Okay.
I think the communication key was a little off that night for sure. And I talked to my staff members about, changing protocol, about going down, making sure the count is the same, just so it never gets out of hand again.
Okay. I don't have any
And
other questions.
We're also gonna add another person up front just to, help the front door guy as well.
Okay, Commissioner Saxon, do you have any questions?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Then the board will take this matter under advisement as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling item number 11, CMG 10 PO Square LLC, doing business as Marielle, located at 10 Post Office Square. Date of the incident, March 27th, 2022. Lower level capacity 288, house count 267, 477 found on mechanical count in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Boards Rule 1.03J and 1.06A and F. And persons under 21 in possession of alcohol on premise in violation of Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 34A, 34C, and 6464A. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Yes, good morning, members of the board. John Lawler from Prince Lobel on behalf of the licensee. And with me today, I have 4 individuals that are made available to testify if necessary, although Mr. O'Connor will be the principal individual who will testify. They are Christopher Jameson, Mark Malatesta, Joe O'Connor, and Michael Adkins.
Great, thank you. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Sergeant Detective William Gallagher.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning?
Detective Hernandez if needed.
Great. Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You.
Thank you. Sergeant Gallagher, you may proceed with the police report.
Yes, good morning. On 3/27/2022 at about 12:05 a.m., Sergeant Detective William Gallagher and Detective Eddie Hernandez, assigned to the licensed premise unit, conducted a licensed premise inspection of Marielle, 10 Post Office Square. As detectives entered the premise, they inquired with staff as to the count downstairs in the lower level. Detectives were given 267. As detectives walked to the lower level, they observed the room to be crowded with all booths occupied. Aisles were also crowded to the point the detectives had to push their way through. Thinking that the room had exceeded its capacity load, Detective Hernandez conducted a mechanical count of the lower level, which resulted in 477 persons being found. Detectives relayed that number to Manager Joe O'Connor. The lower level capacity at Marielle is set at 288. Detectives instructed Mr. O'Connor not to let anyone else downstairs. On the ground level, as detectives walked through, they observed 2 females in possession of alcohol that looked to be under 21 years of age. Females in question both tendered fake licenses in their names with dates of birth, making it appear that they were over 21 years of age. Both IDs were confiscated and will be brought to court. 2 females were identified as Talia Zalik, date of birth 3/17/2003 of Michigan, and Kaswali Anushki, date of birth 10/26/2001 of India, and currently enrolled at Boston University. Both females were shown to management and escorted from the premise. Ms. Zalik and Anushki will be summoned into Boston Municipal Court for being persons under 21 in possession of alcohol and possession of a fraudulent ID. As a result of this inspection, Sergeant Gallagher issued license premise inspection notice number 043279 for Marielle for overcrowding on lower level, 288 capacity, 267 house count, 477 mechanical count, and persons under 21 in possession of alcohol. Mr. Joe O'Connor signed for and accepted the notice. I do have pictures of the 2 identifications that we did seize from the 2 females. They are the computer-generated fakes that we see throughout pretty much the whole city. And those are the facts.
Thank you, Sergeant Gallagher. Attorney Lawler, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, I would. Thank you very much. First of all, Sergeant Detective Gallagher, you were the one who wrote the report, is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Yes, and sir, can you tell me, first of all, was the staff cooperative with you and Detective Hernandez when you made the inspection?
Yes, sir, they were.
Okay, and specifically, did you deal with Mr. O'Connor, the manager, that evening? Did you deal with him?
Yes, we spent some time with them.
Okay, and tell me, how long were you on site for at Mariel? Can you give me that, an estimate ballpark figure?
30 minutes?
Okay, and during the 30 minutes, you went down to the underground club, and you also were at the restaurant as well, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay, in reference to dealing with Mr. O'Connor, did he explain to you what Mariel did at that point in time to determine the density number at the club?
He did, sir. They've got 2 counters, one on thresholds to the main entrance, and there's another threshold on the backside that count people that go under the threshold. It won't give you the number for the people inside, but it will tell you as they go in and out of that room under that threshold that it'll plus them or minus them accordingly, according to which way they're moving.
So are you familiar with this system? Have you seen it, for instance, used in other clubs before?
No, sir. We have seen other ones that will actually give you a count of what's in the room. This doesn't. This only tells you what goes under the threshold.
Okay, is this a type of procedure or process that that the licensing board encourages, that they use something other than a mechanical count to determine who's in the club? Would you?
No, they do keep a mechanical count, I believe. I would hope they would. They wouldn't rely on just this.
No, I don't mean that just relying on the relying on the mechanical count. Would you agree with me that using as a duplicate system, that's a good idea? Would you agree with that?
It is, sir.
Okay. The club itself, when you went downstairs, did you actually go downstairs, or was that Detective Hernandez who went downstairs?
We both went downstairs.
Okay, and you said the club was crowded, is that right?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, and when you say that the mechanical count, that's the clicker that you use. For instance, if you're monitoring, a pitch count by a pitcher, that's the same thing, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and when Detective Hernandez was conducting the mechanical count, where were you situated?
I was trying to move my way through the club, looking for other things in the club, such as over service, underage. So I walked the whole perimeter downstairs. There's an aisle that walks around in a U shape or a circular shape, that once you get down the stairs, you can walk all the way to the front where the disc jockey is, and all the way back to the stairway that goes up towards the second floor or the first floor.
Okay, and would you agree with me that when you're walking around, the crowd isn't stationary, they're moving around as well, right? Whether, through the premises, going to the restaurant, going to the bar, the restroom, going to the bar, would you agree with that?
No, sir. It was that tight. It was, people were pretty stationary. There wasn't the room to bounce around like you're talking about. People were pretty much in their spot with their groups of people, and there wasn't a whole lot of movement going on.
Okay. Now, you and Detective Hernandez determined that through the mechanical count that there were approximately 477 people in the downstairs. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Would you agree with me that you did not order Mariel to order people to leave the club? Would you agree with me on that?
That's correct. So we just told them to not let anyone else down, and hoping that natural attrition, people would start to leave and they would fall into compliance.
Well, in reference to when you arrived there, were you aware that they had already stopped letting people down into the basement?
Well, sir, that's a question that we would need to ask them. We did notice there were a lot of people outside. As we were waiting to go in, we saw them taking people in through another entrance to the main building, which comes down the back stairway into Mariel's dance floor.
Okay. Well, would you agree with me that if you thought it was a safety hazard of the number of people in the downstairs club, that you would have ordered them to force people to leave the club immediately, correct?
I don't have that authority, sir. That's only the Boston Fire Department that has that authority.
Okay, so you don't have authority to ask the club owners?
I
or
can't
club
empty,
managers?
I can't empty the club out like that, sir, no.
I don't mean empty the whole club out, but I just ask them to reduce the level of people and ask people to leave. You don't have the authority?
We've never done that, sir. We've left it up to the management, and management's usually very good. We've got a pretty good working relationship with these guys. We inspect them all the time, and you know, we put it on them, sir.
Okay, and also, sir, in reference to the two females that were in possession of false IDs, they did have IDs on them, is that correct?
That's correct, sir, they did.
Okay, and then you asked them for their IDs and they gave them to you, is that right?
That's correct.
And then did you make the determination when you looked at them that they were fake IDs?
Yes, sir, we've got an age authentication system, and it's a download in our cell phones. It's pretty easy. And we can take these IDs and scan them, and they can determine whether they're fraudulent or not. In this case, both IDs came back fraudulent.
Okay, you were aware that the staff at Mariel, they were checking IDs when you arrived, is that right?
That's correct, sir, they do.
Okay.
They eye check them, that there's no scanner that they use, so.
I understand that, but you actually witnessed them. I checked the IDs when people were online and they were entering the premises, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Well.
I do have Mr. O'Connor, who would like to testify as well, sir.
Yeah, like he said when they came in.
Wait a second. No, just wait 1 second, Mr. O'Connor. But first, I just want to set forth, articulate our position. It's our position, first of all, that Mariel ID, the two women, they did have fake IDs. So they did get through the system. We agree with that. In reference to the count, Mariel definitely contests that the number was 477. It's our estimate based on the testimony that the number may have been slightly over the allowed capacity of 288. There were 25 staff members working that evening. And I would like to have Mr. O'Connor address some of that and testify specifically about it. So Mr. O'Connor, please, if you would tell the members of the board your position and were you present the night of 3/26/3/27/2022?
Yes, Joe O'Connor, general manager, I was present. They did have a door count, which is a clicker similar to the one Detective Hernandez used of 267. In running our detailed report on density, which is the app that we've invested quite a bit in to get accurate counts, we were slightly over with the addition of staff members that night. The one thing I will say is that the app does have a sensor at every door. So, even if an employee is walking into the back of the house versus the front of the house, it is able to register that. It has a sensor at the front entrance that it would give you an accurate count on front entrance, as well as the upstairs dining room and lounge, as opposed to the basement, as our capacity of 501 is split between upstairs and downstairs. So, while we have to manage the entire venue's capacity, we do have the ability to get an accurate count between up and down. We just need to make sure that we're accounting for staff members as well.
And in reference to that monitoring system, which you call density, can you tell the members of the board how often it gives you an accurate count?
But as somebody is walking in and out, it's updating it. We're able to go back in, I believe, and pull it on like a 15-minute intervals from a remote system if we were logging in on a desktop. But it is a live accurate count, which I was trying to, that night obviously was busy, but I was trying to kind of get that a point. Like as someone walks in a door, or walks out a door, it does adjust as in real time.
Okay, and did you show any of the police officers that system when they visited that night?
I was trying to show it to Detective Gallagher, and but they were also dealing with the issue in the restaurant.
Okay, and for members of the board, I've got a screenshot that I can forward to you that indicates the density readout on 15-minute intervals that I can forward to the members subsequent to this hearing. In reference to the IDs, were you aware of these two individuals that they had fake IDs and had showed them to members at
No, I was
Muriel?
not aware.
Okay, do you know the evening that they came in, were you checking for IDs?
We were.
And how do you check for IDs?
Similar to how you suggested. I mean, we have an eye check with experienced doormen. We have books to reference. It's pretty straightforward.
And once the police officers identify these two individuals at underage, you agree with me that you had them escorted from the premises, is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Can you describe the underground Muriel for us? For instance, where the booths are located, where the DJ is located, how dark it is, etc.
Sure. It's similar to what the detective mentioned earlier. We have a rectangular walkway that goes from the bar area around the center couch tables. There's 6 center couch tables. On the walls, on the exterior walls, there's 7 booths. There's a DJ that is opposite a bar, if you were calling it the north and south side. So, 6 center couches, 7 exterior booths with a bar on one end and a DJ platform on the other with a rectangular walkway.
And do you remember if the booths were full that evening when the detectives arrived, or if they were partially full, or some of them were empty?
I know we had a center couch table that had not been sat yet that we actually had waiting outside. I believe the booths were sat. I do not think that some of the guests were in the booths though that did have it reserved.
Okay, and where are the restrooms located?
They are, we have a handicapped restroom across from the bar, and then we have separate men's and women's that are up the stairs across from the entry steps.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chairman Joyce, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. I'll start with the persons under 21. So you check them visually, you don't have a scanner?
We do not have a scanner.
Do you feel confident that you train your front door staff adequately and that you do a good job with just eyeballing them?
I think we spend a lot of time in training our doormen. We've never had an issue before. We've had visits before and many ID'd. I think this is the first time we were at an issue.
Okay, so you said you spent a lot of time with the training. What does that entail?
It means we have stacks of fake IDs that people have left behind or have brought from other roles and positions. We have books that we go over. We've had classes before. We're in the process of making sure that every single team member is TIP certified. It's just ongoing training.
Okay. And the people working the door that night scanning the IDs, how long have they worked for you?
Well, they didn't scan, but
eyeballing them.
Yeah. I would say, it's tough with COVID because we were shut down for some time, but I would say 2 years or so, but
okay.
Given a break.
So they've received multiple trainings.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to skip over the density technology and just go to the doorman counting people coming in.
Mm-hmm.
There was testimony that people were coming in the back door. Was anyone working the back door?
So I'm not familiar with the back door. We do have a glass door that goes through the entry. I'm familiar with where it's located. I was not familiar that people were going through that way. That's not a normal operation for us at all.
Sergeant
There's a glass-
Gallagher or Detective Hernandez, did you see people coming in the back door?
Yes, we did. It's the main entrance to the building, not Marielle. And there's a stairway that leads down to, I believe, a fire exit. There was a group of patrons that approached one of the door staff, and they were familiar with him. I believe they probably had a reservation downstairs, and he escorted them there through that glass door down into the restaurant. And while we were down there, we also saw that that door's pretty active. It's a straight shot right down. I don't think they have one of those counters above that doorway either. If that's, maybe that's why the number was off. If people are coming in that back door, that fire exit, I don't think has one of those little counters that council was mentioning.
How does that door work? So I'm familiar.
well, we have, it's a post for security. So we do have someone standing there. The key is, the bathrooms are there. So making sure that no one walks out their own door because it does lock behind. And there is a reader there. But I know the door he's referencing, but we do have a security post that is there, and his job is really to guide people out of the bathroom or coming up the steps to the bathroom in and out.
Okay.
I'd just like to add something about that door. This is Mark Malatesta. I was on premise that evening. I did notice the doorman escort someone out that door. And I spoke to both of them immediately and followed up with Joe O'Connor after the fact, stating that that door is a fire exit only. No one should be exiting out that door for any reason, as it's not our space. And the landlord will be furious if they found us using that for any purposes. So I'm not sure. I didn't see anyone come back in that door. It may have been just the security guys. I had walked back in, so it's potential they could have brought someone. I can't clarify if they did or did not, but I myself specifically had a discussion with both the bouncers that were involved and with Joe about not using that door for anything unless there's a fire emergency.
Thank you. Okay, so Sergeant Gallagher, when you said it was active, did it seem like people were coming and going freely?
While we were waiting to enter, there was a group of, I'm gonna say 10, it might have been 8, that were escorted downstairs with staff's presence. They have to be. There's no other way they could get in.
Okay, okay. I'm just trying to wrap my head around how close to 200 people over and no one really visually clued in that perhaps they were over their security. So maybe there was this door issue, but sounds like Mr. Malatesta is saying it's never used. So I can't really figure that out.
I have a question for the Sergeant Detective. Looking at your report, Sergeant Detective Gallagher, do you indicate that people came in that glass door in the report?
No, sir, that's my testimony today, though.
Okay, but certainly if it was important to you and significant to you enough back then, you would have indicated in your report, correct?
No, sir, testimony is sufficient.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to get back to my questioning.
Sorry, I apologize.
Okay, so I've never been to your licensed premise, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around the staffing model and where the people were being counted, top floor, basement level. So they're counted once when they come in the front door. And then is there somebody else who counts when they go downstairs?
We have someone who is at the top of the steps, who has a manual clicker. In addition to that, there's the reader on each door that combines each space. So everything from the bottom floor, every door that leads to the bottom floor does go into that pool of guests.
Okay.
Commissioners, Mark again one more time. Just want to clarify something about that program that we have density. It doesn't just do thresholds. It tells you how many people are not only in the entire space overall, but also how many are in each individual room, because we knew we would have some difficulty with the up and down flow. So we know at all times how many people are in the main floor of Marielle, how many people are in the lobby between the two, and how many people are downstairs.
Okay, I'm just wondering if, it just seems like a big discrepancy. We're not talking about 20 people over, talking close to 200 people over.
I agree.
And, you know, I know our licensed premise unit, they are experienced in, you know, doing these mechanical counts, so. At this point, I don't have any other questions. Commissioner Saxon, do you?
Yeah, I actually am curious about that density app. How long have you used it?
Over a year. I know that. I mean, I'd probably say it's closer to 2 years. I know I think back in November of 2019 is when we installed it. Obviously during COVID, you know, probably paid a lot less attention than we do now, given the fact that we're open with very short period windows and, you know, guest counts were extremely low. But I believe since of November of 19, I think.
Let me, I think it was November of 19 we installed it. It was right after we had an inspection, and I think that they had said we were like 10 guests over. We realized how difficult it is to count in that room, given how dark it is and how small it is. So, you know, the idea that there were 477 people in there by any count is hard to wrap your head around. I think the key being here that we really, you know, understood some of the shortcomings of manual counts in that room, and we tried to install a technology system to help us manage it better. We invested almost $10,000 in density, and I think now we're kind of looking at the same situation with the IDs where, you know, we've got people manually looking at IDs that is sort of clearly not sufficient given how good some of them are. You know, so we've evaluated a few different scanners, the one that BPD has asked us to look at. You know, at this point, there's been some communication about the cost, you know, prohibitive nature of that scanner, but, you know, we're going to find a solution to put in place. I would welcome anybody on the board or sort of anybody involved, you know, with licensing to come see how density works. I think it's a tremendous, you know, piece of technology, and you know, if we're pretty confident it works well, but again, you know, if we're going to rely on it and to augment our manual counts, I think it's important that there's an understanding of how it works and what it does. So, you know, we'd certainly welcome this, you know, anybody coming in to kind of see how that works.
Thank you, Mr. Jameson. Do any of your other establishments have scanners?
No, we don't, because none of the other ones kind of have the volume and on flow and 2 floors that we do over at Mario.
Okay.
So we specifically put it in there, just given the difficulty of upstairs, downstairs, and then the understanding that the downstairs would be, you know, lively and club-like.
Oh, I mean the ID scanners. I just think it's a lot of responsibility to ask of your doormen to ID them visually. And if we're hearing that it's hard to staff these places up, an investment in an electronic scanner could be helpful.
We've talked at length to the company that Sergeant Detective Gallagher suggested, the ones that they use. They won't give us pricing that's any better than 15 cents a scan. To us, that is up to about $150,000 a year. And so it's just, at that point, it's become completely cost prohibitive. We're open to some kind of scanning tech. We just haven't found one that works. And, you know, we're open to any suggestions that you have. So anything that we can do that's not that expensive, we're happy to do. I will make a point that, you know, we confiscate probably 80 to 100 IDs a week. I mean, we're catching a lot of IDs at the doors. So they are doing a very good job. I think just given the prevalence of them, some do slip through.
Okay, and one more time, someone might have answered this, but downstairs, how many staff are there?
We usually about 25 or 30, Joe, is that?
I'd say, yeah, but 30, including the guys upstairs. So about 25 working down.
25 down, 5 people upstairs. And you're supposed to maintain an aisle around. Is that right?
Yeah, a walkway.
A walkway.
Yep.
And would you say that walkway, how do you maintain that? It sounds like it wasn't very easy to walk around that night in the walkway.
Yeah, I think one thing we take from that is that making sure that the people who have their tables are in their tables where they should be seated, and adjusting that to make sure that, you know, if you have a reservation in your booth, that you're in your booth, so that, you know, there's a wheelchair or a guest walking through that, they don't have the hardship that these guys did that night.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions to you, Commissioner Saxon.
No, just make sure you're creating a plan going forward to make sure that kind of disruption doesn't happen again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The board will take this under advisement. A return for a second call to item number 5. Attorney Conway, has the licensee joined us?
Yes, he is. He's on. Mr. Hartnett is on with us now, and
Great.
I apologize for the delay.
No worries. Thank you. I'll just read it back into the record. Item number 5 on today's agenda, Tycor Corporation, doing business as Warren Tavern, located at 2 Pleasant Street in Charlestown. Date of the incident, April 3rd, 2022. Patron on patron assault and battery in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. Attorney Conway, who are you joined with today?
Mr. John Hartnett, who was the manager on duty that night, is referenced in the police report.
Thank you. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Sergeant Daniel McIsaac.
Thank you, and thank you for hanging with us. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning? Can you both please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sergeant McIsaac, please proceed with the police report.
About 12:05 a.m. on Sunday, April 3rd, 2022, Officers Hollabach in the Alpha 411 and Jones in the Alpha 416 received a radio call for a silent alarm at 6 Pleasant Street, Charlestown. Prior to arrival, officers were notified by the Boston Police Dispatch that the alarm set off because of a large fight taking place inside the restaurant. Upon arrival, the officers made their way into the restaurant and made contact with the manager, John Hartnett, who stated that there was a large fight inside the restaurant, but has since ended. Mr. Hartnett stated it appeared that the suspects were trying to talk to the girlfriend and her friends of the victim, Corey Savigny. When the victim, Savigny, asked them to leave the girls alone, the suspect began striking the victim with a closed fist, knocking him to the ground. Once on the ground, the suspects kicked the victim several times before fleeing out of the restaurant. The officer spoke to the victim and the witness, Nicole Bauer, who confirmed the manager's story. The officer noticed the victim had dried blood on his lips and inside his mouth, along with what appeared to be the imprint of the sole of a shoe on his forehead. The officer requested Boston EMS to the scene. Boston EMS arrived on scene, ambulance 15, and transported the victim along with Miss Bauer to Massachusetts General Hospital. The officers requested a patrol supervisor to the scene. I arrived on scene and conducted a license premise inspection and issued license premise violation notice 026611 for patron on patron assault and battery. That's the entirety of the police report.
Thank you, Sergeant. Attorney Conway, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, Sergeant McIsaac, may we know for the record that the licensee was cooperative with you and the police officers?
Yes, they were very cooperative.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like the board to note that the silent alarm that's referenced in the police report is behind the bar. So what happened here is this fight broke out very quickly. The person behind the bar immediately hit the alarm and retrieved Mr. Hartnett, and they went to break up the fight. It had already been over. The people who instigated the fight had fled the premises, but we were able to, and the police came very quickly, by the way, that they were able to determine what happened. This is a licensee that is basically just a neighborhood pub. We don't really have many problems, but this was just one thing that happened. And as I said, we called the police immediately upon seeing that there was a disturbance. And Mr. Hartnett is available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Chairman Joyce, do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions at this time. Commissioner Saxon, do you?
I do not.
Thank you. Then the board will take this under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the delay again.
Thank you. And we'll take a second call for item number 6. Is anyone on us? Is anyone with us this morning from Redline Pizza? One more time, a second call for Redline Pizza. Is there anyone present from Redline Pizza? We will follow up with the licensee and try to get them on the next available hearing. That concludes this morning's hearing. Those are all the items before the board today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.